Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we find ourselves in the densely packed region of Naramata, where nearly 40 wineries, cheeseries, and distilleries are nuzzled within a 10-minute drive. You'll be a tour vehicle operator trying to satisfy as many customers as you can through a day of operations. You'll be earning prestige, which can be spent to upgrade operations or influence the wineries throughout a tour route, and you're trying to have the most points in the end. Naramata's for 1 to 4 players, plays in 60 to 90 minutes, for ages 12 and up, and published by Deus Ex Machina Games. It's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the art and components you see here are prototype. They're not final. To see all the final art and components, you're going to want to check the Kickstarter link in the description of this video. Now here's the board for Naramata. Now, Naramata is a region inside the Okanagan wine country in British Columbia, Canada. Now in the game, you play a tour vehicle operator. In this case, you're driving the black Humvee around the wine region, and you're trying to satisfy the different tourists that are in your vehicle depending on what they are looking to do. Now over the course of the game, you're going to be driving your vehicle with the tourists in it to the right, down the road, and you're going to be going to different wineries. Each one of these spots has different things that you can do at different wineries, and you're going to be bringing them there to do, well, whatever they're trying to be satisfied with until the end of the day. Now, each day is essentially a round in the game, and you're going to play a specific amount of rounds depending on what type of game you're playing. A standard game is 3 rounds, a long game is 4 rounds. At the end of the game, you're trying to have the most points. So how do you gain points in this game? Mainly, you'll be doing it by satisfying those tourists. Like here on the right, we have, they want to do some cheese sampling, and the more they do that, the more points they'll get. Sometimes they'll just want to get some good views and take some pictures. Sometimes they'll want to go shopping. Sometimes they'll want to do some wine tasting, and the more they do, the more points you'll get. And sometimes they'll want to do some pairings with wine and cheese, and sometimes you'll want to have them go to signature wineries. Now through a drafting procedure at the beginning of the game, you'll end up with some of these. Each day you'll have between 2 and 4 of them depending on how you draft and what you're looking to go for. Now you'll also gain some prestige for some of the ones you don't take, but prestige essentially is currency in the game that you'll spend to do different things that we'll show you in just a little bit. By the way, I know all these cards have the same artwork on them, but the tourists will have different artwork, and check the Kickstarter page because you'll actually be able to possibly be on these cards with different pledge levels. Now mainly on your turn, you're going to be driving to a different spot to take the tourists, and you're going to try to fulfill them by getting different cards. So let's say we want to start off with some cheese sampling. We'll go down the road, you're always going to the right, and let's say we want to stop at this first winery here and we want to get some cheese sampling done. Now when you do that, you're actually going to take a cheese with a cross-out token on it like this, letting you know that no one else is going to be able to go to this spot. Now later I'll show you that there's ways to take these tokens off, but by default, no one else is going to be able to go to this spot. So you place that there to let you know that it has been gone to, and we'll just place our card right on that token just like that. And then we're going to draw some cheese cards. But before we do that, we have to spend time because it takes time to sample some cheese. It actually takes 30 minutes. So we'll take our meeple of our color and we'll just move it 30 minutes down the time tracker here because we start at 11 in the morning. We're going to go all the way to 5 o'clock at night, which is the end of day with these specific tourists, and different actions take a different amount of time, and this is going to actually dictate turn order going forward. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. So we'll draw 2 cards from the cheese deck, and I have them up here. And notice that there's 2 different cheese types here. I have some cheese here and some different type here. And there's a logo in the upper right that tells you what type, that shows you the type of cheese that is. Now what we're trying to do is satisfy our tourists. If we look at our tourist cards, this one does not want cheese, neither do these ones, but this set of tourists do. So we have a couple of choices here. We can either keep both of these because they are different types of cheese, because they want to sample cheese. They don't want to have all of the same. So we could keep both of these, and you would sort of slide these under the card, and this is going to be 2 cards of set collection towards the cheese. And at the end of the day, if it ended like that, they'd get 3 points. Now you'd get 3 points because you have 2 different cheese types there for them. Now even if you have at least one of them, one cheese here, then cheese is satisfied for this specific tourist. But let's say we drew 2 of the same cheese. Now we only have 1 tourist that needs cheese. We couldn't put them both here because it's the same type. You can never have more than 1 of the same type. So in this case, we would put 1 under here. We would discard the other card, and at the bottom you'll see a prestige. You see 1 little gem there. This means you'll get 1 more prestige that you would add to your supply. down here. Now back to our previous example, we had two different cheeses. Now the first one you could put under here for free. The second one actually costs 2 prestige in order to put it under. So I can either spend 2 of these prestige and put both of these cheeses underneath this tourist, and that's going to get us 3 points at the end. Or I could put one of them here for free, discard the other one for the prestige. This one is 2 prestige, so I could put this one under the card, and this one I could discard for 2 prestige, so I'll have 5. Or I could put both of these here, and then spend 2 prestige. So those are kind of the decisions that you're trying to make throughout the game. So in this case, I actually decided to spend the prestige to put both cheeses here. Now let's say everyone else has taken a turn and we've had the different cars go to the different spots. Now when you move, you can't go to any spot in the same winery. You can't go to a same spot where there is a locked token, the one that's underneath these cars that have already been there. You can't go to a space where there is a car. You can't even go to the same winery that another car's at. So I couldn't even go here to get these cheese if I really wanted to. But you always have to continue moving to the right. So I could come down here, or I could not go up here because that's considered sort of going backwards. Here, I could go down to here or up to here. I can go as far as I want, but remember, you can never go backwards. So maybe I come up here to this road, and now that I've gone this way, I'm going to continue on this loop on future turns. So let's say we're going to go here and we're going to do a tasting at this winery. Now speaking of turns and turn order and such, I had just moved an hour to do the tasting, so I am over here, so it's 12:30 for me. Now what's going to happen is after my turn, it's going to be the red player's turn because they're the furthest back, and they're going to go. Now if they only go 30 minutes, something that costs 30 minutes, they're going to go here, and then it's going to be the blue player's turn next, because if they're all tied, it's the one on the bottom. But if you go somewhere, you go on the top. So that's sort of how turn order works, is that you might be able to take multiple turns in a row if it's earlier in the day for you. Now the wine tasting works very similarly to the cheese. You'll draw 2 cards and you'll choose. So you'll get to place one of them for free under one of your tourists, and you can put a second one if you want to pay 2 prestige. I don't quite have as much, so I'd have to only place one and then discard the other and take prestige for that one. Now only one of my tourists wants wine tasting. It's right here. But if I had multiples of them, I could put one under here, pay 2 prestige to put this one under another one if it needed it. But once they're behind or they've been given to a tourist, they cannot move, but you can split them up before as you're doing so. So in this case, we're just going to put one here. Of course, we'll put this one under here, and then we'll discard this one for 4 prestige. Now typically it'd be another player's turn, but I want to show you the other actions. Let's say we were going to go from here, and we go up to here, and we're going to go here to go shopping. Now with shopping, you'll draw 2 shopping cards. If you want to spend a prestige, you can draw a third. And if you want to keep one of these, you can spend the prestige, shown here, the inverted prestige symbol. So this one would cost 5 prestige. And if so, we look at here, this is the only tourist that has shopping. These 2 do not. This one does. And sometimes they'll have multiple shopping carts. You can have 1 card for each shopping cart. So this tourist can have 1 card and these ones cannot have any. So in this case, I can, if I want to, spend the 5 and place this behind it, and it's going to get 6 points at the end of the day, 1 point for each bottle that's here. And remember, you can keep any number of purchase cards as long as you have customers that want them. Now if you notice, this winery that I'm in has 4 different spots, and it also has these big bottle meeples. This is because it's a signature winery. Now actually in the final game, these wine bottles are actually going to have labels for the actual wineries in this region. And so what you can do here is anytime you visit one of these spots on a signature winery, you get a favor token, which is this thumbs up token. And so each of the tourists that I have that has that thumbs up would get one of those tokens. And again, this token is going to be worth a certain amount of points depending on how many I have for this specific tourist at the end of the day. Now instead of going shopping, which took 30 minutes, and cheese took 30 minutes, tastings took an hour, this is gaining favor at the signature winery, and this takes an hour. This is like signing a contract with them. And what this allows you to do is take this white wine bottle marker. Now there's 2 per game here for each of these. So I can go here and get this bottle, and this goes to the side of our playmat, and this is going to help us in future rounds. Because in a future round or day, when I come to this signature winery, if I have the bottle of this signature winery, I can take each of the actions at that winery for 1 turn. Now you'll have to spend the time in doing all of these, but every one you do, you spend the time, but after you're done with that, you take a total of 30 minutes off the total time it would have taken, so because you're doing things more efficiently. So you can do a lot more things, it's still going to cost you more time, but with a 30-minute discount. By the way, these bottles in the final product are actually going to have wine labels of these signature wineries in this region. But let's say in our turn, we were bringing the tourists to take some pictures, do what's called view. In this case, what they do is they roll this die, and on here we see how many cameras we see here. Here we have 3. So by default, you're going to get 3 of these camera tokens to spread amongst your tourists in your car. However, you can spend 1 prestige to get another token, but you can never have a max of no more than 4 in any one turn. So in this case, I had rolled the die with 3, so I had gotten 3 tokens. Now I didn't have any prestige left, but you may have noticed we have these little discs. And now these discs allow you to spend as prestige, and at the end of the day you get them all back. So it's sort of like, you know, using prestige each day you get them. So I could have spent one of these to get this 4th token. Now when you're spreading the tokens, and again, each one of my tourists wanted to do the view with the camera. So I could spread them out like this, or I could have put all 4 of them on one, or any way I see fit. If I put all 4 of them there, that's going to get me 5 points into the game. However, remember, at least one of each thing they want is going to satisfy that row. And as you'll see later, for each row that you don't satisfy, it gets compoundingly worse with negative points. So in this case, I decided to spread it out evenly, then give an extra one. We'll go over those negative points a little bit later. Now let's talk about the last main action you can take, which is going to here. The bread is called a pairing. Essentially, you're pairing, you know, the food with the wine. And this is actually the most expensive from a time perspective. It costs 2 hours to do a pairing. Now you're going to get one of these bread pairing tokens for each of your tourist members that need one, and then you're going to get a certain amount of prestige depending on the time at the pairing. So let's say we did the pairing at 12:30, we would get 7 prestige, but if you did it at 1 o'clock, you get 8. But if you did it at 2:30, you'd get 5. So in this case, we would get 7 prestige, and we did the pairing, which takes 2 hours, and then we would go all the way over here to 2:30. And so for this case, I'll get 1 pairing token for this tourist and for this tourist, because you get, for everyone that needs one, you get 1. And so they are fully satisfied for pairing. Now there's another action you can take called a pit stop. Let's say we move here, you put a lock token there, but you don't take the action. In this case, we wouldn't do the cheese. In this case, we would take the die, we would roll it, and we'd get amount of prestige of equal to the number of cameras plus 1. So in this case, we'd get 3 prestige. Another thing you could do is purchase one of these upgrade cards. You can do this before or after your main action. If you do it before, you can use it on that turn. Now these allow you to do different things, but they cost prestige. This one costs 9, 8, 7, or 5. And they allow you to do different things. Like this one will allow you to spend 2 of those action discs that you can also use for prestige, as we showed earlier, to gain 3 points. This one gives you an additional action disc. This one allows you to play 2 cheese cards without having to spend 2 prestige for the second card. This one allows you to pay 3 prestige to remove a lock token on the board, allowing you to go where you really need to go. So let's say we bought this one, we would pay 7 prestige, but we'd also place a prestige here to every card to the right of it. And by the way, these at the end of the game, you're going to flip over and you're going to gain points, in this case 3. So you put prestige to every card on the right, this card would get taken, these ones would slide down, another one come out, and if someone buys one of these, it's 5 minus this, so it would be 4 prestige. Now, as players get their tourists delivered to the end, that is going to end the round or day for them. Now, it might happen at different times because players are taking different actions, taking different times, things like that. If you get there before 5 o'clock, this will actually help set turn order for the next round, because as you get there, you're going to place your amiibo back to 11 o'clock. But if you've taken longer than 5 o'clock, like if you stayed at a winery the last hour after they closed, you'd get -2 points for each 30 minutes after 5 o'clock. And then you score points for your tourists. And this is a very basic example. It's very conservative because they just tried to spread out and make sure everyone was satisfied. But here, cheese, we got 2. So that is going to be 3 points because we have 2 cards of those different cheeses. The shopping, we got 6 points up here. And we got 2 of these tokens. We got 2 points. For this tourist, we had 1 of these tokens, so it's 1 point. We had 1 wine here, so it's 2, 1 wine tastings for 2 points. And we fulfilled the pairings both here and here. And each pairing gets you 2 points. And the favor bonus here from the signature winery, and we had this here for 1 point. So here we didn't lose any points because every line of every tourist actually was satisfied, because we got at least 1 of each of those. So we would have added up all those points and given us points. However, if you had unsatisfied rows, you'd see how many of those unsatisfied rows you have. The first one is a penalty point of 1. The second one is 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So if you had 4 rows unsatisfied, you'd have a total of minus 10 points. It sort of cascades in that way. And again, you'd start another day, and at the beginning of the day, you draft more new tourists. And again, you draft in a specific order. First round's clockwise, second round's counterclockwise. Again, you could play up to 3 days for a normal game or 4 days for a long game, but you're, again, drafting new tourists that you're trying to score with. There's a lot of strategy that goes into the drafting because you're looking at what places have the most lock tokens on them and things like that. So you might want to draft for tourists that have a lot of open spaces that you can take them to. However, at the beginning of each day, each player gets to remove a certain amount of these tokens depending on the day. So day 2, everyone gets to remove 2 tokens. Day 3, everyone gets to remove 3 tokens. So that can be part of your strategy as well. And again, you're playing for a certain amount of days depending on whether you're playing the normal game or the long game. But at the end of your game, whoever has the most points is the winner. Well, there you have Naramata, and as I showed in the overview, Naramata is a medium complexity board game involving point-to-point movement, set collection, time tracks, and variable player powers. Now, if you'd like to see the final art and components and the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video, and it will take you to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that DSX Machina Games would love your support.